How's it going, guys? It's your boy Kanji FPL and welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the best FPL defenders to target into our game week 1 teams, looking at the defenders that put up the most returns last season, as well as looking at what I think they should be pricing these players at, as well as what I think their true value is. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's discuss the best defenders to be targeting in our FPL teams going into next season. Now, I think in order for us to compare different defenders between one another, we have to understand who is the benchmark. And for me, I think the benchmark FPL defender is going to be William Saliba, who played 3,400 minutes, picking up 21 returns, which were 18 clean sheets and 3 attacking returns. And I think what he did last year was actually very sustainable, especially given the fact he had an underlying XGI of 2.5, as well as Arsenal being the best defense in the Premier League, and in my opinion, the best defense in all of Europe. So I do feel that what Arsenal have done last season is repeatable as long as their spine of Rice, Raya, and Saliba stay fit. I think what they've done last season is repeatable. Now, in order for FPL to be an interesting and fun game, we need to have variability. And I think it's important that the FPL towers don't misprice assets like Trent, Trippier, Virgil, Vardiol, and Pedro Porro, because I think if they price them at the same price point as the Arsenal defenders, why would we consider them? Purely looking at the data from last year's returns as well as the underlying XGI for each player, specifically, I think 2 options stand out. The first is going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold, who played 2,100 minutes, and if he played the full complement of 3,400 minutes, let's just give him a 1.5 times multiplier, and we did the same thing to his returns, he'd be at 24 returns. And that's actually more than what Saliba did. And I think that's why Trent deserves his premium price point, because of the ceiling and the upside that he can provide. Another option that's actually more slept on is actually going to be Kieran Trippier, who actually put up similar output. And you could say the same thing with Trippier, where if we just 1.5 multiply his minutes, we could also do the same thing to his returns, and he'd be at around 25 returns. And I think given the fact that Newcastle do not have Europe, I think that they can completely solely focus on the Premier League, and because of that, they will have a stronger attack as well as having a stronger defense, because they don't need to be playing fringe players from the squad in the Premier League, because they have to balance their squad in different competitions. And I think because of that, Trippier definitely stands out as one of the options that I want to be considering going into next season, especially because based on how, FPL usually prices players, they just look at the points from last season and they just say, hey, this guy put up, 120 points, so I think I'm going to be dropping him down, because last year Trippier was priced at 6.5, and this year I think they'll drop him down to 6, and they'll think that that's adequate. Similar like the Arsenal defenders, where they started the season for Gabriel and Saliba at 5.0, I do feel like they will price these defenders at 6.0, and they'll hope that maybe that will drop their effective ownership. And I do feel that the true value of these Arsenal defenders is actually not 6.0. I do feel that the true value for them is actually going to be at 6.5. I do want to mention that I haven't talked too much about Ben White, and that's because going into next season, I do feel that Jurriën Timber should take a lot of the minutes away from White, where I think that Timber as well as White will both not be good FPL picks, because you won't know who will be starting in whichever competition Arteta wants to prioritize. Maybe the pattern will be predictable, but starting the season, I think I would purely just want to focus on Gabriel or Saliba. A few alternative differential options that I think will probably have the 6.0 price point are going to be Virgil van Dijk, the best defender in the Premier League in my opinion. But I do want to mention that now that Klopp is gone, who knows what's going to happen under Arne Slot. Now, I know with Trent, he has so much upside, so much potential that regardless of how Liverpool are doing, I'll always just go out and put my neck out to have Trent in my squad. But with Virgil, I do feel that his best is sort of come and gone, and he's towards the twilight of his career, and you can see that he's sort of regressing here and there. And I do feel that because he was priced at 6.5 last year, they will drop him down to 6.0 this year, and I do feel like his true value is actually at 5.5. I do feel that at a lot of times when I owned him last year, it just felt like a joke. Like he pretty much had no returns. He was pretty much empty, even through some of the good fixture runs. And I do feel that he should be priced at 5.5. And to me, if he's priced at 6, I don't think he will be good value. However, Joshko Vardiol actually averages more FPL points per start than Saliba and Gabriel. Now, that's a very interesting statistic. The only issue with Vardiol is that you cannot nail his minutes because he plays for Man City. Pep roulette is always a threat, and you never know if a player is going to start or not start that game. And because of that, I think I'd look to just avoid Vardiol, especially if he's priced at the same price point as Saliba and Gabriel, which is what I'm going to be assuming. To me, I just think it's not worth the risk personally, especially given how solid and consistent Arsenal can be. Now, of course, I think they'll look at Pedro Porro, who put up 18 returns last year, and a majority of it came from attacking returns because of the system that Postecoglou uses, where his wingbacks are inverted. And I think that gives Pedro Porro lots of freedom, lots of license, especially being on set pieces as well. However, Spurs just lack defensive identity. Postecoglou likes to play one way, and because of that, they don't keep enough clean sheets. And so to me, I just think if he's priced at 6.0, his true value is more so at the 5.5s. And so the key determining factor when we're considering the premium defenders is going to be the price points of the Arsenal defenders, of Gabriel, as well as Saliba, whose minutes are completely nailed. And I really can't see other players rotating in and out to take minutes away from them. So in my opinion, if all of these options are priced at 6.0, why would you consider Virgil, Vardiol, and Pedro Porro regardless of fixtures? Moving on to the defenders that I think will be priced at 5.0, we probably got my pick of the bunch first in Fabian Schär, who actually is a center back for Newcastle. Similarly to what I said about Trippier earlier on, because he doesn't have Europe, I'm hoping that they will probably be able to have better attacking data and better defensive data because they won't need to prioritize different competitions. Now, last season, Schär actually picked up 4.0 expected goal involvement. That's really high for a center back, because if you look at somebody like Diego Dallo, who played as a wingback for Manchester United last year, he has similar expected goal involvement. Now, that's because Schär isn't just a normal center back. Yes, he gets at the end of crosses from Trippier from set pieces, but on top of that, he goes on some mazy runs here and there, just runs up the pitch, dribbling the ball. The coach gives him the license to do that. And similarly with Romero, you see something similar at Spurs. So I think these are going to be the three options that I think should be priced at 5.5. I think that's what I think that FPL will price them at. However, to me, I think their true value is also at 5.0. I think these options will be fairly priced, and I think there's going to be some little nuances to really consider if they're priced at 5.0. With Romero, will Spurs' identity change? Will Postecoglou have a potential plan B where you can trust them more defensively? Because last year, they just played front foot football. They never really changed tactics. They became very predictable, and because of that, they didn't keep enough clean sheets to make Romero a solid set and forget option. With Diego Dallo, last year Luke Shaw was out, so Dallo was playing some of his minutes at left back as well as some of his minutes at right back. So now because Shaw, we're expecting him to come back and be fit, well, his expected minutes go down because he had to share time with Wan-Bissaka at right back. So that's just something to think about. For me, I think when I'm considering these options, these are the type of options that I could potentially move towards in the middle part of the season, but I would want to stay away from them at the beginning just to see how the teams are doing. Moving on to the next price bracket, these are the defenders that I think FPL will price at the 4.5 price range. I've tried to include as many defenders as I would consider at this price bracket, the defenders that have the most expected goal involvement. If I missed one, my apologies in advance, but I did try to target the ones that I think had the most attacking threat. Now, in order for you to be bringing a 4.5 defender into your team, you need the holy trinity. You need good fixtures, maybe potentially having a good rotation between two 4.5 options, as well as having very solid expected goal involvement. And you also need the team to have a low expected goals conceded. And if you can have the last one, which is kind of a low-key little golden nugget, but if the goalie doesn't make too many saves, that would mean that the defenders are going to be more likely to keep bonus points as well. That's kind of like a fourth factor that is kind of important, but not really, because you really care about the bread and butter of defenders, which are their defensive points. Now, for me, I think the main options that I'm going to be considering are going to be the ones in pink. And I think all of these options should be priced at 4.5. However, some of them do have some potential upside, and I do want to be starting with Udogie, where if we're going to be pricing Pedro Porro at 5.5 or 6, then I think Udogie should be priced at 5.0. He has very solid attacking threat. The issue with Spurs defenders is the system under Postecoglou, which I mentioned earlier. Now, my favorite differential that I'm going to be tracking going into preseason is going to be Pervis Estupiñán, which interesting is somebody like Saliba that put up 21 returns and he played every single minute of the entire season. Somebody like Estupinian could be a diamond in the rough if they price him at 4.5, because what I think we should do is we should double his minutes, maybe even triple his minutes. And if we did the same thing to his returns, he'd be at around 24 returns from a potential 4.5 option. And because of that, he has to be someone that his true value is at least more than 4.5, especially if they have that type of ceiling. So he's somebody that I do want to monitor. I know that Roberto De Zerbi is gone, and so there could be a potential down spell for Brighton. We don't know what the tactics will be. Maybe it'll take a while for the team to set in and understand in order to have a cohesive system. But this is somebody that I will be tracking throughout the entire season because of the value that I think they could represent at 4.5. Moving on to Lewis Dunk. Dunk is the type of player where he has lower upside than somebody like Pervis Estupinian, but his minutes are completely nailed. For example, he played 3,000 minutes, but if you look at his returns, it's only 9. So yes, expected minutes matter, but Estupinian is just a much better per minute option. And if they're priced the same, then just go for the risk and go for somebody like Pervis Estupinian. Moving on to the team that I'm going to be tracking personally, probably my favorite team to watch at the end of last season, which was going to be the Eagles. Crystal Palace. They have two options that I'm expecting to be priced at 4.5 in Tariq Mitchell and Daniel Munoz. Now, Tariq Mitchell is a type of player that I think should have been brought to the England squad, but that's a whole different story on the incompetence of Southgate. But Daniel Munoz came into the team at the midway point of last season, and under Glasner, this team was just a completely different vibe. Like, if you just look at Daniel Munoz putting up 9 returns in half the season, if you played the full season at the same rate, that means he'd pick up around 18 returns. Saliba picked up 21. So I think Munoz is definitely somebody to have on your radar, though I do want to mention that, the system that they were using under Roy Hodgson is going to be completely different than the system that they use under Glasner. So that's why the data for Mitchell is slightly skewed to the negative side, because if we doubled Munoz's data, we're expecting 18 returns, right? And if we're saying that Mitchell played the whole season and he picked up 15 returns, that would give you this false idea of that Munoz is a much better FPL pick than Mitchell, but I don't think that's the case. I think between them, you're just splitting hairs. So that's just something that I did want to mention. Let's move on to the Everton defenders in Branthwaite and Tarkowski. Now, I'm not sure if Branthwaite will still be at the club by the time the season starts, but as long as they bring in an adequate replacement, I still think that under Sean Dyche, Everton defenders can always represent some value at the 4.5 price point. Now, last season, Branthwaite put up 16 returns and Tarkowski put up 15 returns. But Tarkowski actually put up more underlying XGI than Branthwaite. So for those of you Tarkowski owners, you must feel very hard done by. And I think that's just how FPL is sometimes. You have to get a little bit lucky. And for those of you that had Branthwaite last year, you got slightly lucky with the returns that you got. And I think going into next season, if I had to pick a defender, if they're both still at Everton, I would pick Tarkowski over Branthwaite just because I would trust the underlying data. If they're priced the same, I'd rather have the player that has more underlying XGI. Now, if we're moving on to Ryan Aït-Nouri, one of my favorite defenders to honestly watch. I just think this guy has a lot of potential. However, just Wolves can't keep enough clean sheets. A lot of Aït-Nouri's returns came from his XGI, but if we're looking at his XGI at 5 and his total returns at 8, that means he only really kept, 3 clean sheets whenever he was playing? That's porous. So I feel like even if Wolves have a good fixture run, he's someone that you can consider, but that fixture run would have to be absolutely perfect. However, I do feel like the two other alternatives that I would consider at the 4.5 price point in preseason is going to be Senesi and Castagna. Castagna has some really interesting fixtures to start out the Premier League. I think in Game Week 2 and Game Week 3 having really gorgeous fixtures, and he could probably be included in some sort of rotation. On top of that, I just think Senesi, and I just think that he has very solid underlying XGI, especially for a center back. Picking up 15 returns in only 2,000 minutes is unreal. If he did that again, he would represent very, very solid value. So he's someone that I'm definitely going to be considering going into the fixture planning area of my FPL season, as well as somebody like Castagna. Am I going to be able to include him in some of my rotations in order to maximize the amount of returns that I can get from my defenders? I think the ones that I've highlighted in pink are going to be the ones that I'll personally be targeting. I think they have very solid value, along with Schär, Saliba, as well as Trippier. I think those are going to be the options that, based on my price points, I think those are going to be the ones that I'm looking to target. And I guess we'll have to see how teams do in preseason, but this is just giving you a quick overview and insight into some of the best defenders. All right, guys, so hopefully I provided some value to you over the course of this video. And if I did, if you could just hit the like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.